Welcome to the Mixed Race Belonging podcast, where we explore the intersection of mixed identity and belonging through the lens of somatics and personal and collective liberation to help you heal your belonging wounds and reconnect with your innate wholeness through relationships, new experiences, and activism. I'm your host, Raina LaGrand, an embodiment coach for mixed race people with a background as a trauma therapist, yoga teacher, and health educator. The tools and insights I share with you here are the approach that has not only helped me heal my belonging wound, but also helped me help my mixed race clients do the same. We all need something good to belong to right now. Relationships and spaces where we feel safe, held, seen, heard, and dignified. Thanks for being here, and let's get started with today's show. Hi, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode is timely and will hopefully be very helpful because we are going to be talking about how to handle family conflict without losing your shit this holiday season. It is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving here in the United States, and that kicks off the, sort of Euro-Christian centric, Anglo-centric holiday season. And so I know that there might be many opportunities where you will be with family members, some of whom might not be your favorite family members, some of whom you might have long-standing conflict with. So I know you might be going into this holiday season feeling a lot of dread and anxiety. And I'm really hoping that this episode will be helpful for you if you feel like that. I also just want to name and acknowledge that this first holiday, the Thanksgiving holiday, is one that lacks a lot of truth, and that is based on a story that is not true about how Native Americans and the Pilgrims interacted, what those early relationships were like, and that there is truly ongoing colonialism and genocide in our country and in this world, and so much disconnection from that truth, and so much dominance of some groups over others. And there's a lot of wounding there in all of us. If we go all the way back, the origin of the belonging wound, because the belonging wound isn't only a mixed race experience. So many of us in the West, in the global North, have a belonging wound because if we go all the way back, our ancestors, we were forcibly disconnected from their land and their spiritual practices, and even separated from each other. And so I think it's just important to name and know that belonging wound, that colonial wound, the soul wound, as Eduardo Duran names it, particularly for Native American folks, really affects all of us and can't be separated from this upcoming day of Thanksgiving. Yeah, there's a lot more that I could say there, but this episode's really focused on helping you handle family dynamics and family conflict. And that might range from more personal kind of things all the way up to the political level, where many of you listening to this show, many of people in my audience are not necessarily all about that, like Thanksgiving life, right? Like we actually know the more of the truth, right? We know what has been conveniently left out of the story, and we don't agree with celebrating on this day. But that is also a time that many of our families gather, when we might have a day off to be able to spend with our families, or we might be expected to be with our families. So, yeah. And, this info is going to be helpful for you, even if there are other holidays that you do celebrate instead of Thanksgiving or Christmas. But I just know that for many people, this is the holiday season, and this is a time of year when there's a lot of time off and time to spend with family. So let's get into it. First thing I want to say is that it really is okay if you lose your shit. I know that it's really hard. It's so hard and so triggering. And it just makes so much sense to me if there is a time when you pop off or just like storm out of the room. And I hope that you can have compassion for yourself around just how real that is, and how much sense that makes, because I think your ability to be compassionate with yourself about when you can't keep it cool and collected is gonna support you in being able to move forward or have growth in whatever way you desire. So it's okay if you lose your shit. And I want you to remember that and hear my voice if that happens. Come back to this podcast and yeah, just know that I'm with you in that. And so much of what, is going to help you get through these challenging experiences and to not lose your shit or to have compassion for yourself if you do is having self-trust, feeling like you can trust yourself that you have the capacity to deal with things, the capacity to take care of yourself, the capacity to recover if things go awry. And that all comes back to, do I just trust myself? Do I trust myself to do hard things, to feel hard things? Do I trust myself to make mistakes that I will recover from those mistakes, or I will be able to, just kind of bounce back? So I talk a lot about self-trust, right? And I just want to bring that front and center, that. And even in doing this planning that we're going to be doing here today, you are building self-trust. You are showing yourself in all your different parts that, hey, I'm thinking about this. I'm making a plan. I'm trustworthy. I want to make sure that we feel as safe and as grounded as possible. So, as we're starting out, I want you to think about, what are you anticipating these family interactions to be like? What are you anticipating as the worst case scenario, right? That you're like maybe feeling some dread or anxiety around. And I also want to encourage you to think about what the best case scenario is, because I think if we hold that gently in our awareness, that makes that best case scenario more possible, because we can show up with a trust that that is possible, and a knowing that there are things that we can do that will contribute to that best case scenario. Because even if it's not you who starts the conflict, you're still part of the conflict, and how you respond is going to shape how things play out. There's this concept in parts work. I call it the big Z, because it's like, just imagine like a big zigzag line going back and forth. And it's sort of like in conflict, often what happens is someone says something that triggers something in you, and then you speak from that part. So you speak directly from anger. And then that triggers maybe anger in your person that you're talking to, your family member. And then so their anger that speaks back to you might trigger more anger. It might trigger shame. And it's sort of this downward zigzaggy spiral. But what we can do through the kind of the tools that like parts work, for instance, offers us, is we can do a U-turn and check in with ourselves and notice, what am I needing from me right now? What kind of resources or support can I provide myself or find for myself? And in doing so, then can I speak for the anger instead of from the anger? And that's going to completely change how the conflict goes potentially, right? So an example of speaking for the anger is like, fuck you, you never, da 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 da, right? Speaking, that's speaking from the anger. From the anger is sort of the like most explosive, rageful, cruelest thing you might say. Speaking for the anger might be, hey, when you say that, it makes me feel really angry, because it makes me feel like you're actually not seeing me, right? Do you hear the difference? And, again, I'm not faulting you if you do pop off. This isn't about like being perfectly regulated all the time, but just knowing that how you respond in a conflict is absolutely going to shape how somebody else responds in that conflict. So, what's the best case scenario, and how can you cultivate the resources within you to contribute to that best case scenario happening, while also being prepared for the worst case scenario and knowing that you can only control yourself. You can't control the other person, and everything can't be fixed in rainbows and butterflies. So I think it's helpful to think about the spectrum from worst case to best case scenario. And then once you've done that, we're going to talk about how you can support yourself before, during, and after these events. So, supporting yourself before is preparation, right? It's preparing yourself mentally for the thoughts that are going to come up and the conversations you're going to have, the questions you might get about you or your partner, or if you're going to have kids, or the comments that might come out about your skin tone or politics, right? It's preparing yourself emotionally for the anger, the fear, the resentment, the sadness, the shame that might come up in your body, and also preparing yourself somatically, which is thinking about what are kind of the survival responses that might be generated in me, like fight, flight, freeze, sort of like a fawn kind of collapse response, or like an appeasement response. So, sort of like shrinking yourself away or doing something to like get on somebody's good side, right? And you probably already know already like what your tendency is. And it might kind of depend on the situation, but yeah, do you tend to go into fight, flight, freeze, fawn, or appease? So, preparing for each of these different levels or categories mentally might be rehearsing different statements that you would say in response to certain comments, or talking things through with friends, saying to your friend, "Hey, I'm really nervous about interacting with my uncle. Could we, do you have time to talk before I fly home, so that I can feel more prepared?" So, some examples of some statements you might share that you might want to practice. And you can maybe think back to past interactions you've had, or like what are the frequent conflicts that come up. But here are just a few examples. "I understand that you feel that way. Please don't talk to me like that. I'm going on a walk," right? Those are just a few examples, but you can kind of do a little role play with yourself around what are the common conflicts that come up and what are some statements I might want to have. And again, brainstorming with a friend, or you can even feel free to DM me. And, there's not a lot of time before Thanksgiving Day, but like I'm happy to brainstorm, or maybe I can like offer some more examples in a reel or something like that. So, emotionally preparing means maybe doing some like affirmations, doing a lot of like validation of yourself, and maybe even some journaling. So, some examples of affirmations might be: "I have a right to be here. My feelings are valid. It's okay to feel scared." And really continuing to deepen your relationship with yourself and the different parts of you, the different energies that have a tendency to arise in these situations, and really letting them know that, hey, I'm with you. How do you want me to show up for you when these things happen? What can I do to help you feel safe? Somatically, I want you to think about what kinds of somatic or physical tools could be helpful for you. Different kinds of movement or sensory inputs. So, beforehand, that might be making sure you get in a workout the day of, or yeah, feeling like you can go on a walk in the middle of the day if you need some alone time. It might be taking a hot bath before the event, or doing some breath work. It might also be some of the things that I've shared as tools on my Instagram, like excusing yourself to the bathroom to shake it out, or to squeeze the edges of your body, squeezing your arms, which can be very soothing. I call it the inchy pinchy hug, and it's a favorite of many of my clients. So thinking about what do you need to feel prepared before and day of, mentally, emotionally, and somatically. And then let's talk a little bit more about like during. So you might think about what are the somatic tools that I want to take with me? What are the phrases that I will say in response to common comments that come up? I also want you to think about like who can you call? Can you even like prep a friend to be like, hey, can we be buddies today? Thinking about maybe where will you go, if especially if you're traveling. Thinking about, is there a certain park nearby that you can escape to? Is it going to be safe to walk in that neighborhood? Are there sidewalks? Will you need to like do a little research ahead of time, depending how familiar you are with the area around where you can escape to? Can you even just get in your car? I know for many of us, our car is like a safe place. And thinking about, what do you need to bring with you? Do you need to bring some fidget toys? Do you need to bring some essential oils? Do you need to bring your journal so that you feel prepared? Do you need to make sure you dress comfortably or bring, a hoodie in case? I know for me, my hoodie is like my safe place. So thinking about, that's kind of like, what's your SOS plan if shit really hits the fan? All right. Next, I want you to think about for the day of, what are your boundaries? And I want you to think about your boundaries in 3 categories. And that includes essential boundaries, like absolutely, I need these. And what are sort of like the like nice to have boundaries. And maybe even thinking about, let me phrase it a little differently here, thinking about different behaviors or comments. What is going to be essential for how you want to be treated and spoken to? What is going to be tolerable? What you're like, yeah, my Aunt Susan doesn't always like say things in the best way, but that's okay. And what's going to feel like a deal breaker, like this happens and I'm out. So thinking about what is essential, what do you need, what is tolerable, and then what is a deal breaker? What is like, absolutely, this is like where I draw the line. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about like how to exercise your boundaries. And before I do that, I want to share a framework that I found really helpful and that I think I shared in a previous episode about like kind of the different levels of boundaries. Like, I mean, first of all, that boundaries are actually, what we hold ourselves to, not what we hold other people to, but also that there's actually different paths we can take before and after setting a boundary, different levels, like different ways that we might escalate a situation or escalate our response. So think of it this way. The first level is to make a request. The second level is to set a boundary. And the third level is to issue an ultimatum. And actually, even before the request, I think knowing that protecting your peace through silence is always an option. Right? So thinking about kind of how you're going to be with yourself in the situation. And B, using curiosity. Like, have you ever heard this tip that if someone says something racist, you say, what do you mean? Or to make them really like reflect. And I think actually curiosity can be really helpful because there might be ways in which we are anticipating conflict and where we might see conflict happening where it's not, or where it wasn't going to happen. And so, asking like, what do you mean by that? Or like, could you say more, can be a good way to help yourself get clarity on what's actually happening before jumping into conflict mode. I also want to say that using this method of requests, boundaries, ultimatums is very relational. This is about, when you first are trying to sense for, is this relationship salvageable? And if it's a relationship that you do want to protect for some reason, I want to encourage you to think about communicating your desire for the relationship and expressing emotions. So like when you say or do XYZ, it makes me feel like you don't value me, or I'm sharing this with you because I love you and I want our relationship to continue. So these are very relational responses, but again, it's always an option to just be silent or to leave if it's feeling like actually I'm not being respected here. So let's talk about choosing the quote unquote right response. So I have 3 different situations here, and I'm gonna talk you through different request, boundaries, and ultimatum examples. So let's say your dad always raises his voice during arguments. A request could be, could you please lower your voice when you speak to me? Or it could even be like, oh, when you speak that loud, I get overwhelmed. Like, would it be okay if you spoke a little more quiet? The boundary level would be, I won't have a conversation with you when you're yelling at me. Right. And do you hear that there's an action there that I'm not going to have a conversation with you if you're yelling at me? Not don't yell at me, but I won't have a conversation with you when you're yelling at me. I'm going to exit the conversation if you continue to yell. The ultimatum would be, if you continue yelling at me like this, I'm actually not going to continue to come to these holiday gatherings. I'm not going to answer your calls. I'm not going to keep you posted on what's happening in my life, right? So that's more ultimatum level of like, are we in this or not? Are we going to stay friends or not? Let's take a second example. Your aunt scoffs at you that you are still dating that white dude. Ugh. So a request would be, please respect that I have chosen this person as my partner. His name is Dave. And even bringing some emotion, and it could be, Dave is one of the best partners I've ever had, and it would mean a lot to me if you actually would respect that. Boundary level. If you continue to refer to my partner that way, we're going to leave. So this is maybe assuming Dave is at the party with you. If you continue to talk about Dave like that, we're going to leave. Ultimatum level. If you continue to refer to my partner in that way, you will not be allowed to see my children anymore. Yeah. So you see, like, there's different levels of escalation here. Okay, the final example is your cousin is calling you an Oreo. Ugh, I hate that. So the request could be, please don't call me that. It's offensive. Could even be bringing some emotion into it. Hey, like, when you call me that, it really hurts my feelings because I just want to feel like I belong here. A boundary could be, I'm going to move seats or leave if you continue calling me names. Right? So the action that you're going to take if they continue the behavior. And the ultimatum would be, I can't continue to have a relationship with you if you call me names, if you microaggress me in this way. So different levels here: request, boundary, ultimatum. Now, I also want to go back to, if we want to salvage the relationship, right? If we don't want to get to that ultimatum level, or it doesn't feel like that is what is necessary or needed, one of my favorite tools is nonviolent communication, and it's a 4-part process. And this would be like a deeper conversation, I think, than just like a quick response in like a group or in passing. So the 4-part process goes: 1, observations, so stating what you're observing; 2, expressing your feelings; 3, expressing your needs; and 4, making a request. So let me give you an example. 1, observations. I notice you keep commenting on my skin tone. 2, feelings. When you do that, it makes me feel like you don't want me here. 3, needs. I want to be here because you all are my family and I love you. 4, requests. Would you be willing to stop commenting on my skin tone? So let me put it all together. So-and-so says, like, man, you're so pale. You say, I notice you keep commenting on my skin tone, and when you do that, it makes me feel like you don't want me here. I want to be here because you're my family and I love you. Would you be willing to stop commenting on my skin tone, right? So there's the request level, and that might be an opportunity to really draw someone into your world and your experience and to get closer. And then, of course, you can escalate it to a boundary or an ultimatum if you need to. And I want to name too that some of you might be entering family spaces where like you've already done the request, you've already done the boundary. This is ultimatum time. And that's real. Like I want you to really think about that. And I know for some of my clients, the best decision that they've ever made is to distance themselves from their family. And that can bring up a lot of grief, of course. All right. So finally, let's talk about aftercare. If you are nervous about a family gathering, I want you to plan something after the event, whether it's the evening of or the next day or the next week, that you can do for self-care. Who are you going to call? Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? What can you set up now? A massage, a friend day, a mental health day, like taking the following Monday off of work, making sure that you can see your therapist on the Monday or the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, for instance. So being prepared to know that no matter what happens, I have a plan for aftercare can kind of like hold you through the tough stuff. Yeah. And I just want to name too, that's one of my like go-to phrases, huh, y'all? Hope that's not annoying. I feel like I do a good job of not saying too much or like on these podcasts, but I have some go-to phrases. So, but I do want to name that one of the new sort of elements of my one-on-one coaching offering is that it's all focused on a belonging project. And that could be a personal project, a professional project, an emotional project. That could be, I want to get back on the dating scene, or I want to get to know my ancestors, or I want to host a Black Lives Matter protest in my town, or, any of those kind of things. It could also be, I want to work through my relationship with my family and decide whether I want to continue being in relationship with them or not. Or I want to work through all of the ways that I've silenced myself in my relationship with my dad. So it could be something kind of relational and emotional like that serves as your belonging project. And I will be there supporting you along the way with weekly calls where we will really be doing some deep inner work, as well as like building skills for when you're outside of our sessions. You're going to get access to a library of resources that will help you to feel like I really got this. Different somatic tools, nervous system education, relationship tools. You're going to get voice message access to me Monday through Thursday. I call that oh shit support. And then you also get inducted into my alumni network. We meet every other month to just like practice our somatic skills and just connect. So this is a really, I think, sacred, potent offering that might be able to meet you in this experience of struggling with your family or whatever other kind of belonging stuff is coming up for you. So DM me as always, email me, let me know how this podcast episode felt for you and what questions you have about working with me. I'm really wishing you a safe, gentle, peaceful, all the things as best as possible holiday and holiday season. And I also just know that, and I want you to know that you got this. Like if it is hard, that is okay. You are not alone in this, in the challenge of this and in the grief that this all brings up. All right. Talk soon.